So, hi, my name is Lynn. I'm a third-year environmental science major working with Dr. William C. Porter in the ENSC department. I'd like to present my presentation on investigating the air quality benefits of prescribed fire in California. So if you live around the Southern California region, you probably have experienced or heard on local news about a wildfire. In fact, there's an increase in annual acres burned in US and also federal suppression costs, which that includes firefighters, helicopters, and any other equipments that are being used to fight against active fires. Especially, so I just like to emphasize on the year past 2000, since there is a more drastic increase in both annual acres burned and federal suppression costs. Other than federal suppression costs, there's also another consequence that follows wildfires is the pollutant and the human health threats that is with the air pollutants. So the graph on the bottom highlights the correlation between percent monitored days over standard and the acres burned for California. And it seems to follow a similar trend that it influence each other, or at least the areas burned influence the percent monitored days over standard, which is basically days that any air pollutants are being observed to be over a set standard for the specific pollutants. In regard to specific types of pollutants, if the fire only consumes biofuels, so like dry shrubs or grasses, then it emits pollutants that are less threatening to human health, like carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, methane, particulate matter, and others. However, if it spreads towards an urban region, so if it consumes structures like houses or vehicles, it have the possibility to emit more toxic pollutants like irritants or carcinogens. The figure on the right really highlights the correlation between when the smoke wind intensity and the percent increase of respiratory related hospitalization when the smoke wind is present. So clearly, as smoke wind intensity increases, the percent of hospitalization also increases. So since both increase of federal suppression costs and increase of pollutants being emitted is related to increase of annual acres burned, it is important for us to decrease that number or reverse that trend. So one of the possible mitigation strategies that scientists have came up with is prescribed fire, which is intentionally igniting some fire that are burned during safer burned windows to burn off accumulated fuel loads. And it is ignited during safer burn windows so that it's easier to keep under control for the fire, and also the air pollutants wouldn't be spread as far. Specifically for Southern California region, the safer burn windows are the non-Santa Ana wind days, which are Santa Ana winds are winds that dry winds that started from the Nevada desert region that's blown offshore towards the coastal region. Prescribed fire is more heavily practiced in the Southeast United States region, so Florida and Georgia. Though it's less common in other regions, there's actually a case of prescribed fire that is being burned in the week of 19th April 2021 in San Bernardino National Forest, city of Big Bear. They carefully selected 3 patches of land to be ignited. Other issues that are faced with prescribed fires are liability, so human health threats that relate to air pollutants, and also better practice policies. So since prescribed fire needs such careful planning, it's important for us to understand the pollution impact with different types of fires. We use WRF-Chem, the Weather Research and Forecasting with Chemistry Extension, to really understand that. WRF-Chem is a gridded regional chemical transport model. That means the gridded means that you take a region, 3D region interest, and then you divide them into boxes. You calculate each boxes individually, then combine them to really show the difference in concentration of the movement of specific air pollutants. With WRF-Chem, I decided to use Thomas Fire as a case study. Thomas Fire is the biggest fire event that happened in California. It burned almost 282,000 acres in Ventura and Santa Barbara County, which is shown on the fire parameter map on the right. It started with intense wind blowing parallel power lines to hit each other and then create electrical spark, which ignited nearby dry shrubs and spread it. So specifically how I use WRF-Chem to model and calculate stuff. First, I get meteorological data from the NCEP, the National Center for Environmental Protection. The data is a product from Global Data Assimilation System. It's collected degree by degree, longitude and latitude scale, and then it retrieves a set of data every 6 hours. So the meteorological data from NCP sets the initial boundary conditions, so to set the region of interest that I'm studying. I also get fire emission data from FIN, the fire inventory from NCAR, the National Center for Atmospheric Research, and it's data that collected based on satellite observation of active fire and land cover with field type, and it gives me data for fire emissions. And I get those two data and put it into WRF-Chem, which solve for evolution of fire plumes based on physical transport, chemistry, chemical reaction if it happens in the air, and eventually disposition, so if it settles down or not. The GIF on the right is a product of WRF-Chem that shows the evolution movement of PM 2.5, so particulate matter that is less than 2.5 micrometers in diameter for Pacific, North America, and Atlantic region. From WRF-Chem, I get an output that is specifically to meteorology, so temperature, winds, relative humidity, and also chemical composition. So specifically for when I'm studying fire, it includes fire plumes and fire smokes. With that, I'd like to highlight a paper and study that's also conducted on the Thomas Fire for December 2017. They have concluded that Santa Ana winds played a critical role in spread of Thomas Fire in December 2017. And then it's initially blown westward with intense offshore winds, so it's the Santa Ana winds that are being mentioned. The series of figures on the right really highlights where the pollutants are traveling and the concentration of the pollutants along with the wind vectors. So the black arrows are the wind vectors. It shows the direction and the intensity of the wind with the length of the arrows. And the color on the map shows the concentration of the pollutants. So the more red or purple the color is, the more concentrated it is. And they also found out as Santa Ana winds died down during the event, smoke spread towards other areas that are more coastal and more populous. So LA County, Orange County, San Luis Obispo County, and other counties surrounding Ventura and Santa Barbara. With that, I came up with a research question of how would pollution and human health impacts of the Thomas Fire have differed if it had occurred during another time of the year? Since I am studying the difference if it occurs at different time of the year, it's important for me to really study the original fire condition. So also along with the paper studied, it is important to really study the wind vector since it affects the spread of the fire and the spread of the air pollutants with the fire. So this is a figure, and also it will be a video I'll show later that that really highlights the movement of the wind. So again, the black arrows shows the wind direction and how strong the wind is. The length shows how strong it is, and for this figure, the deeper the blue, the more intense the wind is. And as you can tell, around the Santa Barbara area, there is a really strong offshore wind from Nevada desert that spreads both the fire and the air pollution on towards the ocean. I also study a chemical output of specifically carbon monoxide, since carbon monoxide is a direct emission from wildfires. It also reflects that the carbon monoxide, the pollutant, is being spreaded with the wind. So this is also a video that I'll show later. So for this figure that you will see a spark around the Santa Barbara area that as it gets white or red, the more concentrated it is. So you can tell that there is smoke coming up, being emitted, and also then being blown offshore. So for summary and future steps, I already set up chemical transfer models, and then it's also consistent with the literature search. And then next, I'd like to develop a different model of the wildfire being started in different time, and also if it's burned under prescribed fire condition, and evaluate and quantify the health benefits and for those scenarios. I'd like to thank you again to my faculty mentor, William C. Porter, and also the lab. And these are the work references that I used during this research. And with that, thank you for listening, and I'm open to take any questions.
I have a question, actually.